Hey there, idiots. Welcome back to Observe. In today's video, we're going to be analyzing the nonverbal communication of our president, Joe Biden, in regards to, well, aliens, really. Let's roll the intro. Today's video is brought to you by our longtime supporters and friends over at HelloFresh. HelloFresh is here to help you achieve your New Year's resolutions. With delicious recipes delivered right to your door, you can say goodbye to the stress of grocery shopping and regain control of your time and budget. HelloFresh's festive fare collection is ideal for kicking the post-holiday blues that you might be feeling. These limited-time recipes made with seasonal produce and premium proteins are elevated winter classics that will leave you feeling satisfied and refreshed. HelloFresh is the solution if you want to eat well while saving money. Reduce your reliance on expensive takeout and delivery by preparing high-quality, restaurant-quality even meals in your own kitchen using quick, easy, and inexpensive recipes. Fast and fresh recipes from HelloFresh are designed to be ready within 15 minutes without sacrificing taste or quality. These meals will leave you feeling happy and full, whether you're in the mood for a falafel power bowl, maybe seared steak and potatoes, perhaps even Southwest pork and bean burritos. HelloFresh has the options you need to be able to achieve your goals with over 35 weekly recipes to choose from. Choose from Calorie Smart, perhaps Carb Smart recipes, switch proteins or sides, upgrade your proteins, or you could even add proteins to a veggie dish to make your meals unique to you. HelloFresh is not only a way to eat healthy, but it is also a low-cost option. In fact, HelloFresh is less expensive than grocery shopping and 25% less expensive than takeout, so you can save money all year around. If you're concerned, however, about maybe the quality of the food, HelloFresh has you covered there as well. Their ingredients travel from the farm to your door in less than 7 days, ensuring that you will always get fresh, high-quality ingredients. So instead of trudging through the snow, rain, or any bad weather, what have you to go grocery shopping? Stock up instead on snacks, sides, desserts, and more at HelloFresh's market. Simply include them in your weekly order and they'll be delivered to your door alongside your meals. Eating well has never been simpler or more delectable, really. So if you would like to be able to start your new culinary adventure this year, go to HelloFresh.com and use the code OBSERVE65 to receive 65% off plus free shipping. Again, that is HelloFresh.com. Use the code OBSERVE65 to receive 65% off, and you will also get free shipping. Thank you again to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video, and back to our regularly scheduled programming. Well, so to be able to add to the catastrophe that has been the past few years, we now are finding out that the government has been shooting down unknown aerial phenomenon, or UAPs, or UFOs, as we also might know them, over various regions of the North Americas. Now, they have been fairly caged about what it is or what these objects might be. I'm going to be analyzing some footage here that Biden is presenting. It was streamed live a little bit ago, and we'll hopefully be able to pick apart any details that we can see in there. That's enough of the talking. Let's go ahead and begin.
Closely scrutinized our airspace, including enhancing our radar to pick up more slow-moving objects above our country, around the world. In doing so, they...
Interesting. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make a note here about that one very large, impressive gesture that he did there with the nose rubbing. Now, there are people who will argue something called the Pinocchio effect, and that idea is that the blood vessels in your nose when you are lying or being deceitful will enlarge, and that will cause your nose to itch. This isn't actually scientifically proven. That does not exist. The Pinocchio effect does not actually work. If you see somebody itching their nose, that doesn't mean that they're lying. It just does mean that their nose is itching. Now, that also being said, you have to be able to pay attention to it in context to see if it does create any nonverbal spikes from their baseline before. So since this is just dropping right in the middle of this footage, then it's difficult to say. So I would not hang anything on that nose itch that was in there at all, really, whatsoever. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and continue forward and see how he addresses this. Perhaps there will be areas that he slips up or gives some nonverbal indications of further information that we might want to be able to know. Let's continue watching.
In doing so, they tracked 3 unidentified objects, one in Alaska, Canada, and over Lake Huron in the Midwest. They acted in accordance with established parameters for determining how to deal with unidentified aerial objects in U.S. airspace. At their recommendation, I gave the order to take down these 3 objects due to hazards to civilian commercial air traffic and because we could not rule out the surveillance risk of sensitive facilities.
Okay, so this is fascinating. This presents somewhat of the tone for what we're going for. Non-verbally speaking from Biden, we're not seeing anything extraordinary. This seems to be fairly rehearsed, and it would make sense that it would be. He's not looking towards any specific direction over and over again to refer to note cards, so it's something that he would memorize, so there is still that possibility that maybe he will slip up something along those lines. Now, what we can at least infer from what he said here is that they saw the objects, they observed the objects for a while, and this is coming just shortly after the spy balloon incident. So they saw and observed these objects for a while and decided that those ones were important enough or threatening enough to shoot down out of the sky. So that's a fascinating aspect of it, and he even describes it as it could be a threat to commercial airspace, and it could be a threat to important information. We're going to continue forward with this in mind, see what else we see.
We acted in consultation with the Canadian government. I spoke personally with Prime Minister Trudeau from Canada on Saturday. And just as critically, we acted out of an abundance of caution and an opportunity that allowed us to take down these objects safely. Our military...
That's an interesting part there. So to take down these, and he starts a v sound. Well, I don't know what that v could be. Was he going to say vehicle? Was he going to say something like visitors? We're not sure. He was going to say a v. He caught himself and said objects. So that there is fascinating. Now, what else is fascinating to me is cycling back around to this. This is fully unknown. And even with a spy aircraft that was discovered before, once the country of origin was known, then it was guided away. That's not the case here. So these were unknown and treated as hostile rather promptly from what we're able to gather here. And we have this little verbal slip up of the f instead of objects. We're left having some questions. There are some answers that can fill in some of those blanks, but it's not a guaranteed, so let's continue.
Our military and the Canadian military are seeking to recover the debris so we can learn more about these 3 objects. Our intelligence committee is still assessing all 3 incidences. They're reporting to me daily and will continue their urgent efforts to do so, and I will communicate that to the Congress. We don't yet know exactly what these 3 objects were, but nothing right now suggests they were related to China's spy balloon program or that they were surveillance vehicles from any other country.
Okay, so we're gathering some more information. It's not China. It's not any other country. He says vehicles here, so maybe that's what he was going to say earlier, was vehicles. That could be the word that he was starting to cut off earlier. Now, with that, I find that fascinating that he's trying to edit himself on the word vehicles. And it's also rather convenient that they are searching for these items, and where they were shot down was so conveniently done that it's difficult to recover the items or the pieces of the items, the objects, the vehicles that they are talking about. So this is a convenient mistake to have been made, especially if they were under observation for a minute, and I'm assuming, and I think everybody is assuming, that this wasn't just a hastily done look at the object in the sky, okay, go ahead, shoot. I don't think that that's the process that was gone through there. So if this was observed in that way, they knew where these were, why did they not shoot them down in an area that then could be easily retrieved? There are a lot of questions around this, and during that, non-verbally speaking, we're hearing Biden have difficulty keeping up the cadence and flow of his words. So not the words themselves, but how he's delivering them. There are more pauses, he's having false starts and some stammers in there, which just lets us know that this is a high-pressure area of what he's talking about. He's doing a lot of extra psychological processing. It's causing his brain to have some difficulty delivering his speech as smoothly as he normally would. So that is a small, very light level red flag. I would want to know why that is. Why is he having difficulty in this area centered around these objects, however that was going to go. And if we're having difficulty there, what's the reason for that? This fascinates me personally a lot, so I'm just going to keep watching.
The intelligence community's current assessment is that these three objects were most likely balloons tied to private companies, recreation or research institutions studying weather or conducting other scientific research. When I came in,
I don't necessarily buy that. Now, there's a couple reasons for that. He could be telling the truth, but he's starting to do a defensive gesture here each time, which before he's been using the pointer finger gesture, which is a very coached and controlled gesture. It's a dominating gesture. It's to make a point. Now he's doing this, and it's his hands tilted outwards. That's slightly defensive. And he locks eyes in a specific area for a large portion of that. And then afterwards, he does a dry swallow or a swallow afterwards, letting us know that he was nervous about that line delivered. Long story short, I'm not actually certain that that is what people have landed on, is that it was, it's just probably private research for something or another. Also, the government has a very, very vast wealth of information. So for them to not be able to track that down, I don't buy it. I simply just don't buy it. Even having worked in the past in various tech companies or consulting with tech companies, the amount of information known by these companies is astronomical. So the idea that the government didn't know about these private companies or people, industries that have been sending up these objects just seems really far-fetched to me. So we're getting a fairly clear picture about what this could be, but again, still no concrete answers. Let's keep watching.
Came into office, I instructed our intelligence community to take a broad look at the phenomenon of unidentified aerial objects. We know that a range of entities, including countries, companies, and research organizations, operate objects at altitudes for purposes that are not nefarious, including legitimate scientific research. I want to be clear. We don't have any evidence that there has been a sudden increase in the number of objects in the sky. We're now just seeing more of them, partially because the steps we've taken to increase our radars, to narrow our radars. And we have to keep...
Going to pause that there. So this is a decent point. He's saying, it's almost an excuse. It feels like he's making an excuse, we're only seeing this because we're increasing our efforts to be able to see stuff, which is fair. And that also is true for a lot of, for instance, psychological diagnoses that have been popping up recently, is that we have figured out more ways to understand and diagnose different conditions, so they will pop up more. So that does make sense. However, he says that that's only partially the answer for it, which means that there is another reason for it, which if we tie that together with the things that we just saw earlier, it's not looking extremely positive that it's something from our understanding as of right now, or the public's understanding as of right now. Perhaps it was a weather balloon or three weather balloons or some other scientific research balloons or it's something, right? But that's not what we're getting from this. And he doesn't seem confident on that. Even when he's saying that it could be that, it doesn't seem confident. So let's keep watching.
We have to keep adapting our approach to dealing with these challenges. That's why I've directed my team to come back to me with sharper rules for how we will deal with these unidentified objects moving forward, distinguishing between those that are likely to pose safety and security risks that necessitate action and those that do not.
Going to go ahead and pause. He does another slip here. He starts saying delaying. Now, delaying isn't the word that he was going for here, but it does have some decent weight behind it in that it seems as though we're preventing something from happening now. And along with that, we also now hear that he is very careful not to want to shoot something down unless it poses a threat, which circles back around to the fact that he perceived these as threatening objects before from no other country. And they were a threat, so much so that even later on, when he's saying, we're being careful about it, we don't want to just go willy-nilly shooting everything out of the sky, that lets us know that these three things at least passed some checks as this has to be seen as threatening. So that's a concerning part in and of itself. Let's keep watching.
Do not. But make no mistake, if any object presents a threat to the safety and security of the American people, I will take it down. I'll be sharing with Congress these classified policy parameters when they're completed, and they'll remain classified so we don't give our roadmap to our enemies to try to evade our defenses. Going forward, these parameters will guide what actions we'll take while responding to unmanned and unidentified aerial objects. We're going to keep adapting them as the challenges evolve, if it evolves. In addition, I've directed my national security advisor to lead a government-wide effort to make sure we are positioned to deal safely and effectively with the objects in our airspace.
So as he's saying this, he's leaving something unsaid throughout all of it, is that there is the assumption and the knowledge from at least him and perhaps a good number more people in the government and uppers, that there are definite objects in our airspace that are unknown and we don't know how to handle them. And now it's getting to a point, he says, because we have upped our technological ability to use radar, now it's getting to a point that we are being forced to develop these new constructs around the concept of there being more and more UFOs, UAPs, etc. And that is an interesting verbal pattern that we're just being able to pick up on here. Let's continue watching.
First, we will establish a better inventory of unmanned airborne objects in space above the United States airspace and make sure that inventory is accessible and up to date. Second,
implying that there are things that need to be indexed, more or less, that there is knowledge of things existing that then need to be sorted through, organized, and made more accessible. Also meaning that there are a number of them. Otherwise, if it was just like one or two, that's not really a necessary index that are really needed. Let's keep watching.
Second, we'll implement further measures to improve our capacity to detect unmanned objects in our airspace. Third, we'll update the rules and regulations for launching and maintaining unmanned objects in the skies above the United States of America. And fourth, my Secretary of State will lead an effort to help establish common global norms in this largely unregulated space. These steps will lead to safer and more secure skies for our air travelers, our military, our scientists, and for people on the ground as well.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pause here. We had a number of verbal slips throughout there, and most of them didn't seem to make any sense. Didn't seem as though he tried to hide one word that was starting off. He definitely slipped on words that were similar, and that fits in pretty well with Joe Biden all the way around. But as we're continuing through this, he's now also saying that this is going to make everything safer, and again, everything is centered around the assumption that this instance, the UFOs that have been seen, is something that's going to be repeated. It's going to come again, because otherwise we wouldn't need to really prepare for it. So we're preparing for it in such a way it's even stretching globally. These are all really fascinating details to point out, and more concrete action is being taken towards this than something that would be just a concept, perhaps. Maybe there's the idea of it, which it has been largely in the past treated as such, just a concept. So now we're seeing concrete movements from our governments and the governments across the rest of the globe in regards to possible UAPs or UFOs. And it's not really being talked about or covered in any satisfactory way. It's still trying to keep details of it. The details that would be more revealing are being kept hidden while trying to tout this, we're addressing this unknown situation, really. And that's a red flag as well to me, to see that sort of behavior being done, trying to hide something that has been identified as at least somewhat of a threat, trying to hide the details of it while only discussing that there are things being done about it. It feels like there is something that's going on that we're not able to, as the public, have information about, but let's keep watching to see.
That's my job as your President, Commander-in-Chief. As the events of the previous days have shown, we'll always act to protect the interest of the American people and the security of the American people. Since I came to office, we've developed the ability to identify, track, and study high-altitude surveillance balloons connected with the Chinese military. When one of these high-altitude surveillance balloons entered our airspace over the continental United States earlier in the month, I gave the order to shoot it down as soon as it would be safe to do so. The military advised against shooting it down over land because of the sheer size of it. It was the size of multiple school buses and it posed a risk to people on the ground if it was shot down where people lived. Instead, we tracked it closely, we analyzed its capabilities, and we learned more about how it operates. And because we knew its path, we were able to protect sensitive sites against collection. We waited until it was safely over water, which would not only protect civilians, but also enable us to recover substantial components for further analytics. And then we shot it down, sending a clear message. The violation of our sovereignty is unacceptable. We'll act to protect our country, and we did. Now, this past Friday, we put restrictions on 6 firms that directly support the People's Republic Liberation Army, the People's Liberation Army Aerospace Program. That includes airships and balloons, denying them access to U.S. technology. We briefed our diplomatic partners and our allies.
I'm going to go ahead and pause it there. He does obviously then address why they say that they waited for that long. I suppose that does make sense. Now, I lived in Montana for a while, a good while, over a couple decades, and I know that there are, in fact, many areas of land that it would have had plenty of space to land on. I don't care how many school buses or what have you that it could have covered. So that, okay, I can see where perhaps having it shot down into water would be beneficial on some level. Okay, so we'll go ahead and give that to Biden. It still is not excusing any level of what we have seen before this, and we're still hearing the same sort of odd verbal flub-ups around his verbiage on certain aspects that it does make sense and fit in with his baseline, so we'll just have to keep those in mind as we continue.
And our allies around the world, and we know about China's program and where their balloons had flown. Some of them have also raised their concerns directly with China. Our exports have lifted components of the Chinese balloon's payload off the ocean floor. We're analyzing them as I speak, and what we learn will strengthen our capabilities. Now, we'll also continue to engage with China, as we have throughout the past 2 weeks. As I've said since the beginning of my administration, we seek competition, not conflict with China. We're not looking for a new Cold War. But I make no apologies, and we will compete. And we'll responsibly manage that competition so that it doesn't veer into conflict.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pause that here. So something that Joe is doing regularly over and over again is a pretty substantial lip compression mixed in with a swallow after certain sentences. Now, the lip compression has been said before in nonverbal circles to indicate that that is where the person is perhaps saying something or feeling like they're saying something they shouldn't. Could be a lie, could be giving away truth that they shouldn't give away, something like that. But the lip compression comes out there as quite literally they're clamping their mouths shut. That's a possibility there. Also, the swallowing in there is where it kind of makes that less likely for Joe because he's also giving a speech. And every time that I'm seeing it, I'm also seeing a swallow with there, which would make sense just in general with speaking. So with that, not going to hang anything to all these lip compressions that I'm seeing. I have seen quite a few pop up, but they don't seem to be in any areas that would be contextually a red flag. So we'll just keep them in mind here. And then we're also hearing him have more verbal difficulty while talking about this competition as opposed to conflict with China, which just lets us know that he's at least feeling some level of stress during this area as opposed to the other areas, which then using that, knowing that we can tell he's stressed here by his verbal patterning, that also lets us know that earlier on when he had the same sort of difficulty that spiked up there with all of the flub-ups and pauses and hesitations when speaking about the UFOs or UAPs, that was also another area of stress and strain. So now we have a more strengthened red flag from before. Why was he stressed then? And it's all kind of painting a bit of a picture for us to be able to see here.
This episode underscores the importance of maintaining open lines of communication between our diplomats and our military professionals. Our diplomats will be engaging further, and I will remain in communication with President Xi. I'm grateful for the work of the last several weeks of our intelligence, diplomatic, and military professionals who have proved once again to be the most capable in the world. And I want to thank you all. Now look, the other thing I want to point out is that we are going to keep our allies and the Congress contemporaneously informed of all we know and all we learn. And I expect to be speaking with President Xi, and I hope we're going to get to the bottom of this. But I make no apologies for taking down that balloon. Thank you very much.
Okay, and there we go. That's the end of the speech there. And at the very end, you can hear where he wraps up his more or less scripted area, and he has the, okay, look. That line lets us know that now he's broken script. That's not written in the script. Okay, look, Now he's going unscripted, and we're hearing a lot of the vocal difficulties that would normally go along with Joe Biden's speeches. And so earlier on, that lets us know that in these heavily scripted areas where those mistakes actually surfaced, lets us know that that was pushing through a scripted speech, one that he actually delivered rather smoothly and rather confidently. So with this, all that I can say from watching this clip from Joe Biden is that it seems as though the UFOs were a threat, whatever they were, that they were enough of a threat that we need to start making new global constructs around how to navigate possible future ones, that what we're seeing is an increase, which he tried to write off as our technology is increasing so we could see more and understand more. That's possible, but that doesn't necessarily fit with the fact that he's also now being like, okay, so now the whole world globe kind of needs to come up with some laws about this stuff. So that doesn't fit in there. So that feels kind of like a Band-Aid over that. So more or less, we're seeing that there are threatening UAPs in the air, that they are becoming more prevalent, that there is enough of them, that there are enough of them up in space and in our airspace to need to be indexed and categorized well enough to be able to be easily accessed for people. And that there are details that are being masked still, that there are elements to this that it seems as though we're only getting a partial picture as to what's going on, and none of that is directing me towards feeling like it's some sort of other spy balloon, or even the very flimsy possibility of it being individually owned aircraft of some form. So take that or leave that as you will. That's what we're able to pick from this. If you would like to be able to see more, especially centered around this topic, or if you want to be able to see more centered around just the idea and concept of aliens in general, there are a lot of people that have claimed to be have interaction with aliens, or to have even been abducted by them or see them on any level. So if you would like me to be able to look at some of those and see if people are being genuine or deceitful, just let me know in the comments below. If there's anything else, comments below. If you want to be able to reach out to me, I would suggest going and checking out the socials. Either myself or somebody from my team will be on, and hopefully be able to get a response to you. That would be pretty nice if you have any questions, anything like that. There are some fun projects coming up here. I am wearing part of some of the fun projects here, but we'll talk about that more in a later video. But without further ado, that's all that I've got for today. My name is Logan, and you have been oh so awesome, as you always are, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.